Oh! Oh!
Jesus fucking
Fuck
Christ.
this stupid ass game. This this predicated probably the most scathing Steam review I have ever left for a game on Steam, probably in my entire life. The Backrooms have become arguably the most famous case of what we refer to as liminal spaces. Transitional spaces that have lived in our subconscious as familiar yet dreamlike in many instances. Offices, pools, the interiors of homes, quiet, dark neighborhoods, empty malls, places that have a certain strange vibe when you're alone in them. Now, I want you to take that idea of the vibe you get in these spaces and think about that for a second. It's kind of indescribable at first, but in a basic sense, it's this simultaneously familiar yet off putting feeling of being in a place that you've kind of seen before, but it's all wrong. The recent Backrooms movie from Kane Parsons describes this better than I ever could, saying it's as if you explained what a dog was to someone who had never seen one before and then asked them to illustrate it. And so it comes off feeling more alien than comfortable. I think that's what makes the Backrooms so unique, and that's the allure that brings people in the first place. It doesn't need the frequent presence of a monster to be provocative or to create a consistent sense of unease. The setting and the sense of isolation that often comes with it has done the heavy lifting in terms of inspiring so many other iterations of one initial concept. And so that brings me to the question, or really more of an outward sort of vent I want to pose. Why do so many of the Backrooms games on Steam seem to get stuck on this idea of adding common horror tropes, jump scares, and monsters to an already successful formula? Escape the Backrooms, inside the Backrooms, Backrooms escape together, next spots in the Backrooms. Some of these are better than others, and while the multiplayer Backrooms games have their fun moments, I find the current selection sorely lacking in quality exploration experiences that aren't too caught up in the monsters from the Backrooms wiki side of things. I acknowledge that the Backrooms has become a diaspora of different ideas that have grown from what it originally was. I do. That's where this big database of SCP-like entries about different levels of it came from. And there are a lot of interesting ones in there to be sure, but all I'm saying in this video is that approach to what the Backrooms are just isn't for me. I feel like the monsters like Smilers and Partygoers just have always felt really out of place for what this place is. I want something more grounded. Make no mistake, this video is subjective. I am being petty. I made the title for this video unnecessarily aggro. I am the guy yelling at people enjoying themselves with these games to stop having fun. But I'm telling you, it comes from a place of wanting to be in these people's shoes where I can have my own fun seeing more of the games that I personally want to see on Steam. I don't have the technical know-how currently to make that happen myself, but boy, I know how to make a video and complain about it so like-minded people can comment and say, dude, I know, right? Stick it to the man. When the man is just a solo developer making a game about something they like. But, oh man, I guess there's this elephant in the room we have to go over, so we'll just take the gloves off. Truly, I like to remain positive on this channel and generally don't want to ruin someone's enthusiasm for creating projects they're proud of. I want people to create for the joy of creation itself. But the problem with the Backrooms Lost Tape was that this game, based on my time playing it, had such astonishingly little respect for its reference material that it came off as something that existed solely to make money. It wasn't content to spend its runtime as a pure Backrooms experience, instead resorting over and over again to fanservice crossovers with SCP, Half-Life, and, of all things, Severance. The game, at least at one point, also had several undisclosed instances of AI assets in it that were eventually removed by the developer. The developer, Cortez Productions, said the AI assets were meant to create a sense of unease that fit a Backrooms game, and at least said it would no longer use AI assets in its games, but this still stained its reputation all the same, and the issues with using assets that were not theirs didn't stop there either. The SCP crossover I alluded to comes in the form of a chapter where you're being chased, in the Backrooms, mind you, by SCP-173, an entity from a completely separate piece of media. This already annoyed me enough in and of itself, since the way the developer promotes this game is as something that focuses on the eerie vibe and isolation of the Backrooms as a setting, and so when I played this game months ago for the first time, I just wasn't coming in expecting anything like what I got. But other than that, the version of SCP-173 that was used is the copyrighted original sculpture from Izumi Kato. Its likeness is not supposed to be used for commercial purposes, and yet, here it is in a game that is being sold for real-world money. I can't claim to be an expert on copyright. I can't claim to know what went on in the developer's head when both this and the AI assets were added to the game. But from an outside perspective, it just feels downright slimy, man. Even if there's a legal loophole I'm missing, at best it's ignorant, and at worst it's a willing dismissal of Kato's wishes in the pursuit of profit. Take this mishmash of the original setting with random mix-ins of stuff from other IPs, and take the shift from vibes of isolation to a constant focus on a monster chasing you and making loud growls just behind you, while the lights have inexplicably gone from yellow to red just to scare you, and then compare that to the developer's original claim of wanting to focus on, quote, the story and that lonely, isolated atmosphere, unquote. And I come out of all of that concluding that this is a game that doesn't actually know what it wants to be. It claims to be something that it isn't. It can't focus on either the story or the atmosphere for more than a few minutes at a time without throwing in something jarring enough to take us directly out of that immersion. It does not respect our attention span and expects us to go along with these frequent fan service references as if we're children. That part is kind of an angry conjecture, but I just don't know how else to view it. Like, how can someone take this as a serious Backrooms experience focusing on atmosphere when the second chapter of the game ends like this?
I'm gonna miss
Oh my god,
It was
yes.
really well written.
There he is!
What the fuck?
Oh my god.
What the fuck?
What, you're not familiar with, like, the astronaut that shows up on a UFO in the Backrooms? That's, like, the whole thing.
This happened in the movie?
Yeah.
Yeah, this happens in the movie.
Something like
The
that.
whole plot of the movie.
The jack rooms are crazy.
But I have to fucking swim my ass all the way back over.
I'm proud of you for making it to this point on your own instead of looking up a video.
I'd spent an entire 5.5 hours doing this shit.
You'll never be able to refund this game, so you might as well experience the entire thing.
It's a shame, too. When I played the game, its visuals were stunningly good. There were legitimately immersive ambient music tracks that fit the levels really well. The sound design at times had some great attention to detail. It was a sad example of what could have been if development had been spent more on this kind of immersion like the developer had claimed to be focusing on, but it's just not really what we got. It brings me to this point. A Backrooms game, to me, personally, needs to be able to rely on its setting to consistently keep players immersed. It shouldn't be overly relying on the presence of a monster, or in some cases, these unexplained mannequin jump scares to move things along. I swear to God, they're gonna do the exact same thing. Or to be a driving force in its creation of discomfort. The horror of the Backrooms isn't a monster. It's coming to terms with the fact that you've randomly just been trapped in this place forever, for no reason or fault of your own, that there's no way out, and that the remainder of your existence almost certainly is to forever traverse this endless expanse. The environment itself, meanwhile, is creepy enough in conjunction with that fact to create a sense of awe and intrigue that keeps players exploring. Keep in mind, without the liminal spaces that make the Backrooms what they are, it just becomes another generic horror piece. Without liminal spaces, you don't have the Backrooms, and so those liminal spaces need to be at the forefront of the experience. And sure, that allows for a counter opinion. It's a game, you need a mechanic, or some other form of carrot that drives the player through the level and keeps them engaged. In most games, if you don't have that, the player gets bored and moves on. But to that, I have to put in my own statement that the Backrooms is a different kind of beast. It's one of the few kinds of settings to be able to skirt this rule if it needs to, because they're so distinctly strange and unending that you can really make great walking sims that are engaging from start to finish while just relying on that setting to make exploration worth it or to even carry a narrative along. This is where the complex comes in.
That feels like something that wouldn't be in a Jacob Geller video, it would be in an Any Austin video.
Oh yeah, true.
Which, did you watch his new video today? That was pretty cool.
The one about the oldest building in Liberty. I was going to watch that, but I didn't watch it yet.
I watched it this morning.
Wow, fuck that shit.
The Complex is a series of games made by PG Wave consisting of the titles The Complex Found Footage and The Complex Expedition as of summer 2026. To be clear, there is a monster in the continuity the Complex takes place in, though in both games it's presented as a background presence for much of the story to allow you to focus on the different environments you're exploring. In Expedition, it isn't until the end of the game that you can potentially be ambushed by its monster in the final cutscene, revealing that what seemed like an inconspicuous statue was actually quietly stalking you the entire game. If you're looking for it, you get several instances of coming up face to face with this creepy guy, enough to realize that you're being followed well before the climax of the game. And in found footage, you get either that or the tendril monster from Kane Parsons' series. The way it's depicted in this game makes it so you never even get a clear look at what's lurking behind the corner. I like this presentation a lot more than I do the presentation of the monster in Lost Tape. Tell me which of these you think is the better application of good practices of horror. This? Or this. The former is obviously a more direct scare, but it feels cheap. Meanwhile, imagine you're playing the second game for the first time, or being the person in this scenario if it were real, not knowing what to expect, and then seeing this. It's less direct, but it's a sight that when you see it makes the hairs on your neck stand up. The difference between these scares is that when the first one's done, it's done. But the second one leaves you thinking about it, watching over your shoulder, and maybe really thinking about how quickly you turn corners after that. Now you know that something's lurking about, and you don't want to run into it again unprepared. When it comes to scares, I'll take lasting anxiety over anything that's more sudden or short-term. And so in both Complex games, there's still something for the fans of there being a more malevolent force in this place, but it's not demanding to be the center of attention. Again, the allure of the Backrooms isn't a monster. A monster has never really been the core of its identity, not even in Kane Parsons' rendition. There might be a tendril monster in his found footage video, or even misremembered versions of people that serve as a reflection of the worst parts of ourselves captured in the official movie, but they're not there to be the core of the experience. What Parsons executes extremely well is advancing a narrative through the inherent strangeness of the Backrooms, how the Async Research Institute is choosing to use the space, and what happens when the negative aspects of humanity take over once the once alien place had gradually lost its novelty. I think that's another thing that can help to accentuate the experience of being lost in a space like this. The actual practice of injecting some humanity into it and focusing on the human experience of being trapped here. What's that gonna do to someone, you know? What's the psychological aspect? The found footage video focused on this scared kid no-clipping out of reality while filming something with his friends, and he ends up here, and he's confused and scared and calling out to his friends asking where they are. He doesn't understand what the hell just happened. And so he spends most of the runtime of that video aimlessly wandering around and taking in just how weird this new frontier is. In the Complex Expedition, it takes a similar approach to Parsons' Pitfalls video, where you experience the POV of a hazmat researcher who gets separated from his team through a freak accident and is left to traverse this eerie dimension in search of a way back. A likely looked over but irreplaceable part of the experience and expedition is the intro of the game, where everything is initially fine and you're in the locker room with your fellow researchers and you start to go through the motions of your job, moving in a group and getting this rover going to explore a new area only for it to suddenly disappear. You go after it to find out what happened, but you yourself are cut off from your friends abruptly, and that before and after switch from being with others to being isolated gives a little extra weight to the reality of the situation your character is in.
Hey. What the fuck is... Hello? Is there anyone there?
Once you go through the game, one of the endings has you seemingly find your way back to the exit of the Backrooms into the research facility connected to it. You find the lost rover and head inside, but can't find a single other soul around. Eventually, it's revealed that this instance of the facility is a fake, a reincarnation in the Backrooms themselves. And so that opening scene is called back to mind of the rover disappearing. It should have felt strange to find the rover sitting in what appeared to be the exact spot where it had previously vanished from. The contrast between the intro with your coworkers and where you've ended up now, an empty, soulless husk of a place you were once familiar with, starts to really set in. And the horror of being stuck here forever grips you and leaves you to deal with the ramifications of what that means for the player character. I think that hits harder than any monster could, and really that's the kind of horror I like more than cheap jump scares. I like the kind of horror experience that leaves you stuck thinking about it for a while after. Is Expedition the best example of something that makes me feel existential dread after putting the controller down? No, not even close. I think the idea of a place you started at being revealed to be a fake has been done probably a few too many times in Backrooms media to still hit as hard as it once did. And besides, that title goes to Soma, a game that touches on the ramifications of copying one's own consciousness and the reality that you're separate from that copy. Having said that, what this game does well is keep the mystery of what this place is and what's lurking in the shadows alive for its entire runtime. It doesn't ruin the suspense by revealing those secrets too early like Lost Tape does. While Lost Tape in both of its monster encounters is extremely blunt with how it has its monsters up close and personal immediately for chases or hunts, you're being stalked by a way more subtle monster throughout Expedition. One that only moves when you're not looking at it and almost always is behind you when you catch glimpses of it.
Fortnite, and all the screenshots were just tortured. Oh.
The main way you catch it is by hearing a slight noise behind you and turning around to catch it standing there or moving around a corner. It never jumps out in front of you. It reminds me of my time recently watching The Menu, where Ralph Fiennes is depicted as a cold, calculating, and murderous chef taking revenge on rich socialites who caused him to lose the passion for his craft. Particularly, one of those guests, Tyler, played by Nicholas Hoult, is noted as a know-it-all mega fan of Fiennes' chef character Julian Slowick. Tyler spends much of the film either taking pictures of food that was meant to be an ephemeral experience or spoiling the other guests on the secrets of how the food is made, ruining the mystery of the inner workings of Slowick's highly regarded kitchen. When the same thing happens with the Backrooms, a place that retains its allure through its sheer expanse and sharp corners hiding either nothing or perhaps something. To me, putting the focus on the monster, or even going down the route the fan wiki took by filling it with way more entities and letting those entities and each individual level get explained at a high level of detail, kind of just takes away what makes the Backrooms special. When you know everything there is to know about something, or when there are way more monsters to find in every section and you don't get to enjoy the emptiness that makes that kind of dimension feel so infinitely large and oppressive, then what else is there to do? The soul is gone at that point, and it loses what makes it so intriguing. We saw what happened when the Backrooms lost their novelty. Instead of being a mysterious, anomalous zone full of questions, it became just another place. A commodity. A resource collectively overtaken by a bandwagon. Respect the source material, let exploration come to the forefront, and put a real focus on the story, and a quality experience will follow. Let the Backrooms be the Backrooms. Don't take away from what makes them special in the first place. Because otherwise, you'll just blend in with the rest of the hundreds of other copies that do the same thing.